Welcome to Freedom 101. I'm here with my co-host Sean Manovill. I'm Emily Peyton, and we're grateful for the help from PEG TV in Rutland with Chris and Chelsea. Thank you very much for helping us get on the air. Good morning, Sean.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing very well. A lot of traveling.
Yes, absolutely. A lot of stuff.
Yeah. You want to bring us up to date with as much you can talk about in what's happening to you?
Yeah. So as much as I can say, as a small business owner here in Rutland, a lot of people are going to find out and just found out about a dismissal of a case that we had going with the state of Vermont during the lockdown. And I think people are probably pretty familiar with it. I just wanted to give an outreach to people in need during a tough time. And so part of that has happened today and actually happened last night. And then we're going to make our decisions on how we're going to go forward. And just keeping in mind that as free people, we should be able to make free decisions, and no one person or small group of people should be able to dictate who can and can't survive in this life.
Well, yeah, so I think I want to recap for people because I read about this case that you decided that you were essential to people and that you needed to provide your services, and the state decided to make an example and begin to fine you every day. And I was outraged. I was outraged by their decision about who was essential and who wasn't essential. And it seemed to me that they weren't in a subjective position or an objective position to decide that, because somebody might even have a knitting shop, but it might be the core of a number of people's daily interactions. So I think that it was a very important case. And can you tell us what the stages of the outcomes? Apparently, they dropped the case against you.
So basically what was going on, not getting into details that I can't right now, here's the situation with my case and what went on. Not only were we most essential in not only my opinion, but people within my organization, it was the same people that decided that you were not able to operate are the same people that were able to tell other businesses you are able to operate. So basically what it was is giving a very small amount of people, in this case one person, the ability to single-handedly decide who is going to survive as a business and who is going to either not survive or be in such a predicament going forward that it would be extremely difficult to get back to where we were. Now, I understand with a public health, and please don't think that I'm saying that this was some kind of situation where nothing should have been done. But in my case, especially with health and wellness being a very important part of everyone's lives, and now we're finding out more and more how truly invested people should be in this. Mm-hmm. It got to a point where I was made an example of, and it wasn't about whether I was going to be the person that was allowed to open or close. It was making an example of, you comply
right,
because we told you to comply.
Right.
It had nothing to do at that point with whether it was safe or not. It was
right,
a decision made, and then, oh no, I was been told by numerous sources I was the only business that, quote unquote, did not comply with the governor's
right,
orders. And it's nothing against him personally, but it is about a compliance versus a health and safety
That's
matter.
right. And I think we touched upon this last time. If you look at his emergency powers, they specifically state that he can't contraindicate our Constitution. And our Constitution gives us the right to assemble, to petition government. And we could read one of the things I wanted to do is read an article, at least one, while we're here. But right now I wanted to talk about the concern I have that government has begun to operate in secret. You can't meet with them, you can't petition them, and many people can't even know what's been going on in the legislature because they don't have internet access, and you don't have access to the lawmakers. This is highly problematic. You can't go into any of our own public servants right now. So we're at a time where we need to push back, and people are pushing back.
They are.
They're organizing to file constitutional lawsuits. They're organizing tribunals, and I think I encourage people to get in touch through 802freedom.com or just get in touch with me, and I can help you get in touch with other people in your local area to stand up for our freedoms.
And I think a big part of this is not only the compliance factor, but what's happened is, so we forget in this hoopla of what's going on, we forget that one or a very small group of people made a decision who can survive and who can't with their small businesses because of this health situation and state of emergency. Not saying this isn't an emergency, but what I am saying is those same people that decided who lives and who dies as far as businesses, those same people now take that fear that they can do into the community. So my voice, like you said, they're in secret. I can't speak to anybody that made these decisions. I can only tell my people that are a part of my business or community members that I know my side of the story, but they're getting so much from the top at Vermont and the government that they're taking the people around us, shaming us, making us feel a certain way, even if it is logical.
Right.
So what happens is they turn us into their straight line, and there's nothing we can do to really hold back and give that information out.
Right. So I would argue that there is not an emergency, and I'll look at the numbers in a minute. But this public shaming that they're encouraging people to either tattle on people who aren't wearing masks, or this contact tracing, which is entirely against Article 11 and search and seizure. But what comes to mind is how many Americans have fought for our freedoms. I mean, it is so un-American, so unpatriotic to comply to violations of the Constitution. And the courage to question the authorities used to be a fundamental element of patriotism. We were supposed to question the authorities, and we were supposed to make sure that what they were doing was for the good of all. And now it is, as we said, if people will accuse you of killing people if you go around without a mask, they'll say, "Oh, I want vaccine mandates. I'll do whatever I want," and they, it's almost as if they're hypnotized, and they don't have that courage of being a patriot.
I completely agree. And here's the big part too. Not only do we fear to say our opinions, what happens is it gets caught up in this fishbowl where you are now having to be put into a separate box. If you feel some kind of way, they are going to push you into this box. If you feel some other sort of way, they are going to feed you into this box. Everybody feels differently about different situations, but are not very abrupt to make an announcement to their peers or people in the community because they feel judgment will come from them, and that comes right from the top of Vermont. Vermont wants that. They want people to feel fearful to make those things or those accusations or saying, where is the emergency and what is the emergency? Because here's the thing, no matter what we say, no matter how the numbers look, if the person at the top says it's an emergency, everybody's supposed to agree it's an emergency. Now, the best thing about Vermont is, here's the good news. Good news is Vermont is such a small state and a tight-knit community state that little by little, people will start letting that fear go. And the best part about that is because this government will turn more for the people than that small group of people, because I think people are not really caring as much what other people think. Just in the last 2 or 3 months, I've noticed people are much more willing to, give you their 2 cents or, not wearing a mask while they're walking their dog outside with nobody around. You can just start to feel that they're almost like they put me in fear, but what am I really in fear for? They're starting to learn. They're starting to feel that.
Well, that's good. Around here, you're not seeing that so much you're not seeing that a lot in Montpelier. You're not seeing it in Burlington. You're seeing it in the Northeast Kingdom a lot. People have seen through it, and from the start. And down in Brattleboro, they haven't. So it's really good that people have their common sense there, because when they look at the cases, the caseload, and that's what they're putting the danger on, is how
Right.
many cases. But they've also realized that what they're testing for is antibodies. So antibodies and people are getting antibodies. So they're testing for antibodies that we've already gotten to say that we've got this COVID. So they're bloating the COVID fear going. And so people should know that right now, the total number of COVID deaths per capita, there's been 58 deaths, is 0.00009. Now, let's compare that with our annual death rate here, which is roughly around 6,000. So in 2018, we had 6,027 deaths. That comes out to about 500 per month. So that's what we normally have. And we're not in a state of emergency because of tuberculosis deaths, was I think around 1,000, and that's a respiratory sort of infection thing. And now the governor says we're in an emergency, even though no one's dying, even though there isn't any evidence that there is an ongoing emergency. He says until there's a vaccine. So the idea that Scott will mandate vaccines, and there's already framework going on with the health commissioners to begin to mandate vaccines, and they're starting with the school children. This should alarm everybody, because our sovereign bodies, this is us. Nobody else should own it. Nobody else should claim to own it. Did you want to say something? Because I have something else I want to add about that. You seem like you're ready.
No, well, so here's what I want to say about the state of emergency as well. I'm not trying to blame Governor Scott himself for this state of emergency staying here, because there are people in that circle that are at that round table deciding to keep this state of emergency going. That is not just him directly. So that's when you say they do all their decisions in secret. We're never going to know what Governor Scott truly actually thinks. We don't know what he truly thinks about the state of the emergency. He's in his political position where he has to do that. So again, I don't want to shed blame completely to him. Now, in my personal case, he personally made a decision about the state and how businesses can operate, which definitely took a toll on not only my business, but many small businesses that aren't around anymore and that are not coming back. Mm-hmm. And that's too bad. But I'm saying right now with this continued state of emergency, we've all got to understand that there's more underlying things going on here, because when they say a vaccine, they may get a vaccine that they don't like, and it might not be time yet. So it's a power grab, and I think that's part of the problem with the government in all states. But the best thing, again, about Vermont is we're so small and such a tight-knit community that this is the type of people that changes first. And Vermont kind of gets pushed to the side in the national spectrum, mm-hmm. but I think this is the time where Vermont is going to be that forefront, and all of a sudden other states are going to say, look what this little state up there is doing.
That's right. And people are beginning to organize their people's assemblies and their neighborhood councils. And what I am seeing is an enormous surge forward by the young mothers and the grandmothers specifically. And what the difference is in that sort of leadership is that the mothers and the grandmothers are holding space. They're holding space for us to transform. So it's like they're making walls where people can come in and they begin to see that we have the absolute right to transform governance. And at this point, I really want to read to you Article 11, because I've asked you all to brush off your Vermont Constitution, and I know a lot of you didn't. So I'm going to read to you Article 7 of our Vermont Constitution. And the title is Government for the People, that they may change it. That government is or ought to be instituted for the common benefit, protection, and security of the people, nation, or community, and not for the particular emolument or advantage of any single person, family, or set of persons who are a part only of that community, and that the community hath an undisputed, indubitable, unalienable, and indefeasible right to reform or alter government in such a manner as to be by that community judged most conducive to public weal. So, I mean, they've said indubitable, unalienable, and indefeasible right. That means if we're not happy with government, and I think if you want to boil it down to the issue, is that when we want to empower humanity, we want to do compassionate things, that we want to have a money system that rewards compassion. But of course, we've got in politics, the politicians reward ruthlessness or reward control. They use control and coercion and fear. So that is why we have so much fear-mongering, because we are controlled that way. It's not a wholesome way to do self-governance.
It is not, but the key is, from their standpoint, and this is me just looking from the other side, they see fear maybe as all those things you just described it, and the ruthlessness gets you ahead, but they've found out that not only is that how it works, that's how it works best. So they're not going to change that record. It's got to come from people outside the government. And when they get into the government, and we have people in the government now that maybe were small business owners or larger business owners, then they get to that state of power. And I hear it all the time. I have pretty good friends that have family members in our state government. And I get a lot of information about what goes on up there. And that's what happens is once you get there, it's that buddy system.
Right.
And there's nothing you can do because you get, oh, but you can't do that. Oh, you can't push that hard for that. And if you want this, you're going to have to give them this.
That's right.
So that give take, and we're talking about them. In Vermont, again, I want to stress, this is a time, a perfect opportunity for those people that are walking around, why am I wearing this mask? Or I really don't want to wear this mask, but I'm going to. It's something as simple as that. And this isn't a mask conversation, but for me, it's one of those things where I believe that there are so many people wearing masks because they feel as though they have to, or they're feared into it, or they're going, somebody's going to look at them funny, or make them feel some kind of way, even though with the numbers you just read, listen, we don't want anybody to die. I don't think anybody would say if you're wearing a mask, that means you want somebody to die. I don't think that. I have family members very near and dear to me that have comorbidities that if they were to contract not only COVID, but the flu or anything else, they'd be in serious problems. But what I'm saying is, going into your vaccination question is, at what point are we going to say enough is enough where, listen, there's somebody out there that might think these vaccines are good. We have to mandate flu vaccines for our kids. If there's people that think that's okay, then let them have their kids get flu shots. But you cannot go on the other side and say, but if you think it's a terrible idea or you just don't want to do it, now your kid can't go to school. So we're gonna exclude somebody. Mm-hmm. We're going to exclude somebody, a 3 or a 4-year-old, from going to preschool because the government said they must have this vaccine in their body or they can't be like everybody else.
Right. And there's a Dr. Blaylock. There are doctors who are concerned about the problems with masks. I mean, the science, money can buy a lot of science. But there are doctors who are concerned about hypoxia. What you're doing is you're rebreathing the viruses that you're breathing out. Exhaling is a way of expelling toxins. So I know personally at least one mother whose daughter is coming home with headaches, doesn't want to go to school. Her divorced father wants to insist that the girl go to school, and she's getting headaches. A lot of people are getting headaches because they're not supposed to be rebreathing their own oxygen and they always say, oh, well, the surgeons, they do it. Well, they have oxygen being pumped in, and if you think about it, they're doing very still work. They're not being active. And so some of the things like driving around in a car with a mask, I have taken a CO2 meter into my car. And when I shut my windows and I'm there, I drive from here over to, I don't know, Montpelier, my CO2 level in that car is going to go up to 800 and some parts per million, where it should be more right at 400. So when we're adding the masks are actually violating OSHA standards. And they didn't come into being, the masks did not come into being until months, they didn't get mandated until months in. So people had already been exposed. So the common sense of it is pretty intensely different than the narrative.
But just like saying that, and here's where I want to be open and free for everyone to make their own decision, because I truly believe as adults, we make decisions for ourselves and our small children. If you feel as though the mask works and you need it to stay safe and keep others safe, if you are bought into that idea, and I'm not saying whether it's a wrong or right idea, but if you believe that that is true, then wear a mask. If you have comorbidities and you should not be where you could catch COVID, even though, like we talked about the death rates and the number of, lack of hospital being packed. I know that was the big thing in the beginning. But if you don't want to wear masks, social distance. It's not like, I think what happens is they fear you into this idea. If you don't want to wear a mask, you're trying to infect people. Yeah. Of course not. If I don't wear a mask somewhere, I'm going to make sure I'm 6 feet away, just because even if somebody has the flu or the cold, I don't want to get sick.
Well, I mean, we don't normally, as New Englanders, we aren't like Italians who talk like this anyway, So we normally give each other space.
No.
And I have never been sneezed on by anyone. So I think that in our own regular ways, we are generally very respectful of each other.
I guess I agree with you saying you've never been sneezed. I don't remember somebody sneezing on me. If you're sick, you stay at home. You don't come out to the place of business that you're at, or you take a couple days on. Here's my thing. At some point, we can't allow one or few people to make decisions for everybody forever until they say it's okay. Whether it's our small business that's at attack, whether it's just our human rights that are at attack, our children, if they're forced to do something that we don't as parents know, like who is the government and the governor and everyone up there, who are they to tell us what our kids should and shouldn't do?
Yes, that's right. And so what's happening is people are organizing lawsuits. And I want people to know, if they are holding a temperature laser gun to children's foreheads and harm comes to that child, to their pineal gland because of that, because they should only be measuring on their wrist, the people who are administering that are liable, and they can be held liable. And the people who are forcing children to wear masks, they are having problems on the playground or hypoxic problems. I just want people to know, if you're enforcing these mandates unconstitutionally, you can be held liable. And especially, let's talk about the flu shot being mandated. The problem with vaccines is this, is in the 1980s, the vaccine industry was getting sued a lot for harm. They went to Congress and said, we can't make these vaccines because we're getting sued. Congress removed liability from vaccine makers. They call them biomedicines. So they don't have any liability, and they set up a vaccine harm fund, which to date has paid out more than $4 billion of taxpayer money that they've collected from taxes. So the problem is that if you look at the vaccine injury chart, and you look up the flu chart, the flu injuries, the first injury there is anaphylaxis, and then there's shoulder injury, and then there's Guillain-Barré, and there's some other thing that I can't recall right now. But the anaphylaxis injury from a regular flu shot, which comes between up to 4 hours afterwards, so a kid could get a flu shot at school and not be anywhere near the school, when they could have a reaction like people do with peanut butter. People can go into shock. It can be fatal. So when the idea of mandating a flu shot that can be harmful, that is like saying, we're going to play Russian roulette. Some people are going to get harmed, and your kid might be it, and you don't have a choice. That is entirely unconstitutional.
Here's the problem. It's the line drawing. Where do we draw the line? If we're going to make flu shots mandatory for kids, what's the next thing? And I'm not a big conspiracy theorist. Anybody that knows me knows that this is not some crazy, I'm not that person that's trying to link the dots and something crazy is happening behind the scenes. Here's what I'm saying though, is 6 months ago, we never thought it'd be possible that they'd be talking about right now because of this disease, COVID, that you read the numbers here in Vermont. Because of that, all of a sudden it shifted to, well, let's mandate flu shots.
Well, I mean, absolutely. I mean, let's talk about conspiracies, because there's a lot of shaming going on. And I will remind people that wherever there is ruthlessness, there is conspiracy. Ruthlessness is a conspiracy against humanity. And that is our entire monetary system rewards ruthlessness. So we don't have a monetary system that rewards humanity and compassion. So that's part of our issue. So, wherever you have somebody who's being, or a company that is not treating people with compassion, with, correct equality, you have elements of ruthlessness. And control, of course, and coercion is ruthless. So I will go there. That you need to look at the motives of people who use ruthless behaviors. And it is ruthless to mandate that people have to get vaccines to go to school, because there are people who can't afford to have their kids at home. They can't afford to do homeschooling. And then there's this double jeopardy where they've already paid taxes, and the state should be paying them in groups to homeschool, but yet they're supposed to pay even more. So, yeah, I will go there to say, well, yeah, there are conspiracies against humanity going on by government that's serving corporate interests and not rewarding the good of the people the way they should.
I understand your passion for it as well, and you might be much more versed into what could be going on. I'm just a small business owner that I would like to think I'm thinking logically. So you might have more information in the depths of what you're talking about. I'm saying that this is one of those situations where, as people in the community, our voices need to be heard more about how we feel. Don't feel scared about saying something wrong or somebody's going to feel some way about you. And I know that some people are quiet and some people are not. My wife and I are very different. I'm very loud and outgoing, and she's very reserved and calm. But that doesn't mean that she can't feel a certain way and I can't feel a certain way.
Yeah, and that's a really important personal boundary. I mean, wherever you're seeing somebody saying, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist, because they can't talk to you about the topic. See, that's called an ad hominem. That's attack on your person because they can't discuss the merits of the discussion of whatever the topic is. So, minding your P's and Q's so that if you differ with somebody, you don't say you're a slob, you're a this, you're a that. You say, oh, I differ from you because of X, Y, and Z. And let's bring it back into good personal boundaries. I don't believe in Trump because X and Y. I don't believe in Biden. But we don't say you're stupid or you're an idiot for what your beliefs are. You have an intellectual type of dignity that you offer one another instead of name calling. And I've seen such a degradation of the social civility that really, stop it, people. Be reasonable and civil, because in civility we can exchange ideas.
And when that happens and we become civil and we're able to talk about these things freely without this idea of shaming or what is this person going to say or am I going to get in trouble? This is the big one. I want to touch on this. I know we're at the end, but businesses. I was just talking to one of my friends that also owns a small business. It's not even about if the business owner disagrees with what the governor or the government says. They say, if you don't do this, that, and the other in your restaurant, you lose your liquor license. So they have now made it so you are going to follow the rules, or we are going to take away from your business what makes you feed your family.
Yeah.
So that's where it's the unfairness comes in with
Right.
the government, is they can put stipulations on, if
Right.
you don't, you will pay.
Yep. So next time, let's read Article 1. And Sean, we're out of
Yeah.
time, and we've
It was
filled
fun.
it up.
It was awesome.
Thank you, thank you,
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
See you later.